Chosen one, stop scrolling for a second. Not because I want your attention for views, but because what I'm about to tell you is the kind of thing heaven notices, and most people would miss it completely. This isn't a feel-good message you play in the background while you multitask. This is the kind of revelation that makes you sit up and think, wait, did that really happen to me? Because while I was preparing this, I felt something unusual, like the room went quiet in the spirit. And the truth is, it wasn't because of what you said. It was because of how you carried yourself. You did something recently that looked small on the outside. No announcement, no performance, no trying to prove a point. It came so naturally from the deepest part of who you are that you probably didn't even realize what you triggered in realms your eyes can't see, but heaven saw it, and not in a casual way, more like a pause, a turn, a focused attention. Because your attitude, yes, your attitude, left God speechless. And here's where it gets serious. This wasn't just God is proud of you. This was the kind of moment that made Archangel Michael take notice, the commander of heaven's armies, the one who doesn't get distracted, the one who doesn't stop for just anyone. Something about your response was so uncommon, so spiritually loud, that it demanded review. Not because you were perfect, but because you were powerful in the one moment most people collapse. So before we go any further, if you felt like something shifted inside you lately, like you crossed an invisible line, and you're not who you used to be anymore, type 777 in the comments. Let it be your witness in public that God is doing something in private. Now, stay with me, because in the next part, I'm going to show you the exact attitude you demonstrated that made heaven pause, why Michael specifically focused on your case, and what it means for what's about to unfold in your life from this point forward. God's chosen one, your attitude left. God speechless. Even Archangel Michael was stunned. Let me slow this down, because once you see what I'm about to show you, the rest of this message will finally click into place. In the unseen realm, there is always movement. There are angels assigned to protect, to guide, and yes, to observe. And what most people don't realize is that much of human behavior becomes almost predictable. I've learned that patterns repeat the same way storms repeat in certain seasons. Pain often produces bitterness. Betrayal often triggers revenge. Injustice usually invites anger. It's been that way for generations, and it's so common that it barely registers as unusual in the spiritual atmosphere. But every once in a while, something happens that does not fit the pattern. Very rarely, a soul responds in a way that contradicts human instinct so completely that it creates what I can only describe as a pause in the heavens, a kind of holy stillness where everything seems to lean in and watch. Have you ever had a moment where even you surprised yourself? A moment where you looked back afterward and thought, that wasn't just me. Something carried me through that. You created one of those moments. And I'm not saying this to flatter you. I'm saying it because I've seen enough of life to recognize when something is ordinary survival and when something is spiritual evidence. This wasn't long ago. It happened in one of your most difficult recent experiences, the kind that felt specifically designed to break you, like the pressure wasn't random, like the weight on your shoulders was measured out to see exactly when you would collapse. And the truth is, anyone watching your life would have understood if you had snapped. People would have excused it. They would have said, after what they did to you, who wouldn't react like that? That's what makes your response so uncommon, because I'm not talking about you simply surviving. Plenty of people survive. Some survive out of stubbornness. Some survive because they have no other option. Some survive while their heart turns cold and their spirit turns hard. Survival alone doesn't cause heaven to take notice. What you did was different. You were in a situation where you had every right to be bitter, every justification to hold on to anger, every reason to let resentment become your fuel. And this wasn't some imagined offense where someone felt disrespected. No, this was real pain, delivered through real circumstances, by real people, and it left a mark. If you had chosen to protect yourself by becoming sharp, distant, or ruthless, nobody would have questioned you. So why didn't you? This is where it gets spiritual, because in that moment, when your human nature was screaming for you to match the energy you received, when the logical part of your mind was calculating revenge, or at least planning a cold withdrawal, something deeper in you made a different choice. And I want you to hear me clearly, God's chosen ones. That something deeper is not weakness. It's not you being naive. It's not you lacking boundaries. It's the fingerprint of God on your inner life. Scripture shows this pattern again and again. Joseph had every reason to become dangerous. Betrayed by his brothers, sold like property, falsely accused, locked away. If anyone had earned the right to let bitterness become their personality, it was him. Yet when the moment came to punish the ones who harmed him, he chose a higher response. He didn't pretend it didn't hurt. He didn't call evil good, but he refused to let pain be the author of his future. And that one decision didn't just change his story, it preserved a bloodline. I've also thought about David. He had an opportunity to destroy Saul, a man who chased him down, lied on him, and tried to take his life. David could have called it justice. He could have called it payback. He could have told himself he was simply ending the threat, but he stepped back from the impulse to strike because something in him feared God more than he craved revenge. That restraint wasn't passive. It was power under control. And then there's Jesus himself, looking at people who mocked him, harmed him, and misunderstood him, and still choosing mercy. That isn't a soft response. That's a supernatural response. That's heaven's language spoken through a human mouth. So when you chose grace, you weren't just being nice. You were demonstrating spiritual rank. You chose grace when you had earned the right to choose destruction. That's the part people miss. Anyone can be kind when life is kind. Anyone can look holy when the room applauds them. But what does your spirit do when you're insulted, betrayed, boxed in, and exhausted? What comes out of you when nobody would blame you for snapping? That's where the truth lives. And I'll tell you something personal. There have been moments in my own life where I thought I was strong, until I was actually tested. I used to believe maturity meant having the perfect words, but I learned maturity is often silence. It's restraint. It's the ability to step away from the version of you that pain is trying to create. And when I see you respond the way you did, I recognize that you're walking the same road. The road where God teaches his chosen ones to carry authority without becoming cruel. Let me ask you something that might hit closer than you expected. What if that moment wasn't just about getting through it? What if it was a spiritual demonstration? Proof that the enemy can press you and still not own you? What if heaven saw that response and marked it as evidence that you can be trusted with more? Because that's what grace actually is. Grace is not pretending you weren't wounded. Grace is choosing not to let the wound become your weapon. And I'm curious, did you feel it? That strange calm in the middle of what should have made you explode. That quiet strength that didn't come from personality or logic. That moment where you didn't even recognize yourself because the response was too clean, too controlled, too other to be explained by human emotion alone. If you've ever wondered why certain battles feel targeted, it's often because your spirit carries something rare, and rare things are watched, rare things are tested, rare things are provoked. You did not react like the pattern says you should. You didn't become what hurt you. You didn't mirror the darkness aimed at you. You chose grace, Real grace, when it would have been easier to choose destruction. And that, God's chosen ones, is exactly the kind of moment that makes the heavens go quiet. Do you remember what it felt like right before you chose restraint? I'm talking about that split second when your mouth had the power to shatter someone with a sentence, and you felt the words rise like fire, but you kept them caged. Or that moment when you could have exposed someone's failures and watched the room turn against them, yet you covered them instead. Maybe it was the kind of situation where walking away would have made perfect sense. Nobody would have blamed you. Nobody would have questioned you. And still, you stayed. You kept trying. You kept showing up. And I want you to understand why that moment mattered so much. Because that exact instant when you chose differently than your pain demanded was not small in the heavens. That was a spiritual signature. That was a moment where heaven didn't just see you. Heaven recognized you. Not because you performed, not because you looked holy on the outside, but because your inner composition showed itself under pressure. When I say it like that, it might sound dramatic, but I mean it literally. What you demonstrated revealed what your soul is made of. Most people don't realize how rare it is to meet someone whose responses are not owned by the environment. Most humans live like mirrors. Treat them well and they shine. Treat them poorly and they crack. Praise them and they soften. Criticize them and they harden. Their mood, their tone, their character, it rises and falls like weather. And if you watch long enough, you start to see the pattern. Their behavior is often just an echo of whatever hit them last. But you, God's chosen ones, proved something different. You proved that your character isn't rented from your circumstances. It's rooted, internally anchored. Even when something painful presses on you, it can't force you to become a version of yourself that you've decided you will not be. That is exactly what caught divine attention. Not perfection, but consistency. Not that you never felt the anger, but that you didn't hand the steering wheel to it. And let me say this clearly, restraint is not weakness. Restraint is strength that has learned discipline. Scripture keeps highlighting this same kind of strength because God has always been drawn to it. Think about Joseph again, not just the betrayal, but the power shift. He had the authority to crush the very brothers who sold him, and nobody would have questioned it. Yet when the moment finally arrived, he didn't let his old wounds become his new identity. He chose a response that didn't match the injury. That's what changed the story. Or consider Abigail. She met David at a moment when he was ready to react out of righteous anger, ready to return insult with bloodshed, and her wisdom redirected the entire outcome. Later, David acknowledged that God had used her to keep him from a destructive reaction. That's not just history, it's a pattern. Heaven intervenes around people who have the strength to pause. And then you have Jesus standing in front of accusations, manipulation, and cruelty, and still refusing to let chaos write his character. Sometimes he answered, sometimes he stayed silent. That silence wasn't fear, it was mastery. There's a kind of authority that doesn't need to prove itself in every argument. That's why I keep coming back to your moment. Because what you did was not a personality trait. It was spiritual maturity showing up in real time. I've watched people self-destruct over the need to set the record straight. I've seen friendships die because someone had to win a conversation instead of preserving a soul. And I'll be honest with you, earlier in my life, I used to think maturity meant having the perfect comeback, the perfect explanation, the perfect receipt to prove I was right. Then life humbled me. I learned that sometimes the most powerful thing I can do is refuse to become the prosecutor in a courtroom God never asked me to run. So when I see you choose silence instead of devastation, I don't just hear self-control. I hear training. I hear heaven shaping a leader. And let's make it practical, because I want you to feel how real this is. There are people in the public eye who have had moments like this, where they could have gone scorched earth, where one interview, one post, one exposed message could have ruined reputations. Some chose the spotlight, some chose restraint. You can see the difference in how their lives unfold. One path is fast satisfaction, the other is slow authority. The second path doesn't trend as quickly, but it builds something that lasts. I've also seen it in normal life. No cameras, no applause. I know someone who was blamed at work for a mistake they didn't make. They had proof. They could have exposed the person who shifted the blame. Instead, they handled it with calm, corrected the outcome, and later, the truth came out on its own. What shocked me wasn't that the truth surfaced. What shocked me was the level of inner security it takes to let God be the defender while you stay clean. Does that sound familiar in your story? Because that's what you showed. You don't need external conditions to behave with integrity. You don't need people to be fair in order for you to remain faithful. You don't need someone else to act right for you to stay aligned. That right there is what separates you from most of humanity. And it raises a deeper question, one that matters for where your life is going next. If your character stays consistent when it's tested, what does that say about what God can trust you with? If you can hold your tongue when you're wounded, if you can protect someone even when they don't deserve protection, if you can stay committed when it would be easier to disappear, then what kind of assignment do you think heaven is preparing you for? Because this is extraordinarily rare. Most people are reactive. You are responsive. Most people are controlled by what happens to them. You proved you can be led by what's inside you, by conviction, by wisdom, by a higher standard. And that kind of internal anger is exactly the kind of thing that makes the spiritual realm pay attention. If this hit your heart, I want you to share one thing in the comments. Just a simple line about the kind of moment it was for you. Was it silence, protection, or staying when you could have walked away? Let me take you back to the moment this was noticed. Not in human time the way we measure minutes and hours, but in the ongoing continuous observation that happens around God's chosen ones like you. While you were living your day, trying to keep your composure, trying not to fall apart in front of anyone, your guardian angel was watching the situation unfold. Not just the outward events, but the hidden part, the thoughts you didn't say out loud, the internal wrestling, the choices you made when nobody would have judged you for choosing the darker option. That is normal for souls under protection. Angels are assigned to guard, to guide, to document patterns, not because God is checking up on you like a suspicious supervisor, but because heaven takes destiny seriously. There are silence on your life, and your responses reveal what level of weight you can carry. Some people only show faith when everything is calm. Some only love when love is returned. But you were being watched in the kind of moment that exposes what's real. And then it happened. When you responded with grace instead of justified anger, your guardian angel did something unusual. They flanked your case for higher review. That doesn't happen often. Guardian angels handle most situations within their authority. They don't escalate lightly. They only elevate a report when they witness something that needs to be seen by higher ranks, something that signals spiritual capacity beyond the ordinary. So ask yourself, what kind of response do you have to demonstrate for an angel to stop and say, "This cannot be filed away like normal"? Your file went upward, and it didn't just go to a general review, it was escalated to Archangel level. Now I want you to picture this the way Scripture trains us to think about spiritual realities. There are battles humans don't see, conflicts that aren't fought with fists but with faith, pressure, and deception. The Bible calls Michael an archangel and shows him as a warrior in spiritual conflict. In the book of Daniel, he's described as a prince who contends in unseen warfare. In Revelation, he's depicted leading battle against the dragon. That means his attention isn't usually on a single person's rough season. His responsibilities stretch across regions, atmospheres, assignments that shape entire spiritual climates. So when your case arrived flagged, he was already engaged with matters of cosmic significance. And yet, he paused. Why? Because the note attached to your file said something that grabbed him instantly. It read like this: "This soul demonstrated enemy-level forgiveness while under active attack." Enemy-level forgiveness. I need to unpack that because it's not a poetic phrase. It describes a category. In spiritual warfare, human responses to pain often fall into predictable lanes: revenge, bitterness, withdrawal, despair, numbness. Heaven sees these constantly. They're common, expected, and tragic in how repeatable they are. They don't require special review because they match the pattern the enemy tries to produce in people every day. But there is a rare category, what I call a transcendent response. That's when a human being answers evil with good, when they refuse to become what hurt them, when hatred comes at them and they return love, when someone wounds them and they still choose a blessing instead of a curse. That response is so rare that it gets flagged automatically because it signals a soul operating beyond normal human instinct. And you triggered that flag. Michael reviewed your recent history, not the highlight reel, not the version people assume about you, but the full record. Every situation you faced, every response you gave, every internal battle you fought that nobody else could see. The nights you held it together in public and fell apart in private. The moments you wanted to shut down, lash out, disappear, or make someone feel what you felt, but you didn't. And what he found made him request something extraordinary. He requested a direct audience to discuss your case. I want you to hear the weight of that. Michael, come